Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here, got another Master Duel video for you, and I am back with the OG, the very first archetype that I ever played on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and the focus of the very first Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel video I ever uploaded. That is going to be Tri-Brigade. Yes, for those reasons, Tri-Brigade does hold a very special place in my heart. I have never gotten rid of the cards, not only because it's just a solid archetype in its own right. It's actually a really cheap one too. I think Shuriig is like the only UR in like the whole deck. Double Dragon Lords, if you consider that to be part of the archetype there. But yeah, I mean, other than that, all the main deck stuff is NNR. The other links are SRs. So not only is it a cheap archetype, it's also a very, very good one as well. Even still today in 2024 Yu-Gi-Oh! I think Tri-Brigade decks can definitely hold their own right, especially when combined with the new Fire King support. Did want to show off at least one other Fire King deck. And I also wanted to try out the Ulcanix package in Fire King Snake Eye anyway. So I was like, you know what, I'll go ahead and play it in this, or just build this deck as well. And indeed, because we are on Ulcanixes, we are also on Old Garunix, aka Fire King High Avatar Garunix, right? So on top of that, we are also on a third Kirin. I was only on 2 initially for Fire King Snake Eye, but I have also crafted a third copy of that, as well as Old Garunix to go with the Ulcanixes. So how does a deck like this work? This one is actually pretty straightforward, honestly. Basically, if you have Tri-Brigade stuff, you do Tri-Brigade lines. If you have Ulcanix or other Fire King stuff, you do some Fire King plays. But what exactly does that entail, right? Well, for example, if you open Tri-Brigade Fractal, and it feels weird to me explaining this because I'm like, oh, doesn't everybody know this? But then at the same time, you know, there are definitely people who are hopping into Master Duel who did not play when it first came out, so might not be familiar with how Tri-Brigades work. But basically, let's say you open Fractal, for example, right? Fractal can send a Kit from the deck to the graveyard by discarding it, you know, by its effect. Kit can then send the Nerval when it's sent to the graveyard, and then Nerval gets to search for another Tri-Brigade monster. Now, all the Tri-Brigades have an effect where you can banish Beast, Beast Warrior, or Wing Beast, or as I'll refer to them in this video from now on, Tri-types. You can banish any number of Tri-types to summon a Link monster from your extra deck that is also a Tri-type. Something to know about Link summoning with this effect. You do still have to summon to a zone, or it's actually not even a Link summon. It's a special summon of a Link monster from the extra deck, right? You still have to summon these Link monsters to a zone, either the EMZ or a zone that a Link points to. However, and that's why I've changed my wording here, is that you'll notice that these are not actually Link summons. It's a special summon of a Link monster from the extra deck, which means that you will not be able to bring that Link monster back from the graveyard if it goes there later, which is actually very relevant for the Tri-Brigade Revolt, right? So that is definitely something to keep in mind. But basically, the way that the Tri-Brigade archetype plays out, it's actually kind of similar to Mathmech in a way, where you do your combo, you do your Link shenanigans, and ultimately you're going to want to search out the Tri-Brigade Revolt and set it as your main form of interaction on the opponent's turn. That is, of course, searchable by the Bear Brum. But this is pretty much like Super Factorial. It'll bring back all of your Tri-Brigade stuff, and then you immediately link it off into a Tri-Brigade monster. It actually doesn't just bring back Tri-Brigade stuff, it's any Tri-type. So again, that's Beast, Beast Warrior, or Wing Beast to go into Tri-Brigade Link, which is almost always just going to be Shuriig. Shuriig has a non-targeted banishing, making it a pretty powerful disruption tool. But of course, on top of that, we do also have Fire King stuff going on in this deck. So it's not uncommon to do like an Ulcanix line and then also a Tri-Brigade line kind of in the same turn, right? I actually haven't covered Ulcanix on the channel yet, so for those who aren't aware of what an Ulcanix line, quote-unquote, looks like, and this actually applies to not just this deck, but also to Fire King Snake Eye if you're playing the package there as well. Basically, the idea is that if you have Ulcanix and any other fire monster, could even be Ash Blossom, you can summon the Ulcanix, pop the Ash Blossom, that will allow you to add the Ponix from your deck to your hand. You can then special Ponix by its own effect, get Sanctuary, Sanctuary for Island, Island, pop the Ulcanix to add the Garunix. Olkinix's effect, after being popped by Island, will allow you to summon old Garunix from deck, and then new Garunix will of course summon itself by its own effect. From there you can send either Kirin or Avarta off of the new Garunix to bring back the Ponix, and then you are all set up to link summon into any number of stuff that you need to. Typically, if you go for Kirin, you can Sunlight Wolf to add the Kirin back to hand, and then pivot into the Princess and then Ambler. Of course, you could also set up other stuff too if you wanted to. Sunlight Wolf, though, I'm finding you don't need in the extra deck here. I really only include it because I was following the same Olkinix line that Snake Eyes do, but I think in the future, for Tri-Brigade specifically, I'd probably just take out the Sunlight Wolf and then put in maybe an Appaloosa. It can be pretty easy to get locked out of summoning that, but at the same time, there are a lot of situations where it comes up, and I just barely didn't have enough room for it here. Would probably be the next thing I would add over Sunlight Wolf for the extra deck. But notably, Tri-Brigade Kit and Tri-Brigade Fractal are both fire and also tri-types, meaning they end up being good targets for the Olkinix and are just generally supported by a lot of the Fire King stuff, right? And actually, Tri-Brigade Kit is an excellent card to pop for something like Olkinix or Fire King Island, because once that happens, Kit's effect will activate. You send the Nerval, Nerval adds a Tri-Brigade monster, and even if you've already normal summoned, you can add Karos and potentially special it, and then go into Tri-Brigade plays on top of your Fire King stuff, right? So that's basically the gist of how this deck works. I don't have any, like, concrete combo lines, again, aside from just the Olkinix line I just described, or the basic Tri-Brigade setup that I just described. In that regard, this can be a bit of a free-form deck, but at the same time, both of the lines that are the basis for this strategy are fairly simple, and plays with this deck I don't feel like should be typically too difficult to figure out. We actually had a lot of room for hand traps here as well. You'll notice we're on double Veiler and Imperm, as well as making room for triple attacks. You don't have to play triple attack, of course. You could just max out on Veilers or Imperms instead, which I almost did, but I just love triple tactics talent. It's my favorite staple card. I love the flexibility that it offers, especially for a best of one format like Master Duel. So I like the triple attacks, but again, if you don't own them or don't want to play them, you could very easily just play more Veilers and or Imperms instead. You could try playing some more Engine as well, like maybe a third Nerval. I don't think you need 3 Karos pretty much ever. Third Nerval does occasionally come up. Fire Formation Tenki can also potentially be pretty useful in this deck, pretty much specifically for grabbing Fractal. I don't think we really have any other Beast Warriors, right? Because, yeah, Olkinix is a Wing Beast, so... But being able to search Fractal is still pretty nice to get your Tri-Brigade plays that much more consistent there. At the same time, though, you can always use, for example, like new Garunix to pop a kit from the deck if you really want to, and then again, just send the Nerval, and then you're good to go. I would always play 3 of the kit and Fractal before maxing out on Nerval or Karos in this deck, though, because again, them being fire does make them a lot more relevant to the Fire King strategy. I will say that at this time, I don't really have plans to play pure Fire King, mostly because it'll just cost too many materials for a deck that I'm not, like, the most interested in. I would need 2 more Ponix as well as 2 more of the new Garunix, so 4 more URs for, again, a deck I don't anticipate to play that often, so, but the Fire King Tri-Brigade variant, I don't know, I think this is honestly fairly comparable in power level to pure Fire King, if not a little bit better. I don't know. At the same time, I can feel myself coping very slightly. I think if I had to be totally objective about it, pure Fire King is probably, like, very slightly better than this variant, but I think overall they're like, pretty comparable, about the same power level, with Fire King Snake Eye, of course, being above both of them. But I already talked about the extra deck, right? Sunlight Wolf, I don't think you actually need. I'd probably just play Appaloosa instead. Everything else here, I think I would keep. Yeah, I'd keep everything else here, even some of the more situational stuff, like Elf in the rank 8, or like V Rugal, right? Actually, Rugal might look situational, but for the Tri-Brigade strategy, this can often help you OTK by helping go and make a 5300 access code alongside like a Shurig to swing in for lethal. So, okay. I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover about this deck. Let's go ahead and break the list down card by card, and then we will look at some gameplay. So, for this build, we're on 2 Effect Veiler, 2 Tri-Brigade Nerval, 1 Legendary Fire King Ponix, 3 Max C, 2 Tri-Brigade Karos, 3 Tri-Brigade Kit, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Fire King Avatar Arvata, 3 Tri-Brigade Fractal, 3 Fire King Courtier. Wait, it's not Courier, it's Courtier. Weird. Fire King Courtier Okanix, 1 Fire King High Avatar Garunix, 1 Sacred Fire King Garunix. We got 3 Fire King High Avatar Kirin, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 2 Triple Tactics Talent, 1 Fire King Island, 1 Fire King Sanctuary, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 1 Fire King Skyburn, 2 Infinite Permanents, and then 1 Tri-Brigade Revolt. That's going to do it for our main deck. So for the extra deck, we're on 1 Garunix High Eternity, Hyang of the Fire Kings, 1 Linkribo, 1 Salamai Great Sunlight Wolf, again would drop for Appaloosa, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Ancient Warriors Oath Double Dragon Lord, 1 Tri-Brigade Farajit the Baron Blossom, 1 Tri-Brigade Bearbrum the Rampage Rampager, 1 Sprite Elf, 1 SP Little Knight, 1 Tri-Brigade Rugal the Silver Sheller, 1 Promethean Princess, Bestower of Flames, 1 Amphibious Swarmship Ambluale, 1 Access Code Talker, and then 2 Tri-Brigade Shurg, the Ominous Omen. That'll do it for the list. Let's see some duels. So because these are going to be World Championship qualifier games as usual, with that style of event, I'm not able to check the list and tell you right off the top what we're up against, but I think one of them we do play against Fire King Snake Eye at some point. I think this is Tierlaments, actually, if I recall correctly. So here, I'm going to lead Karos, pitching the Nerval, and then Nerval effect to add the Tri-Brigade kit to hand. That way I can normal summon Okanix and use the effect to pop kit. It was Tier, I was right, because they're going to use Havness here. I could have used Karos to add a Fractal and then Fractal to send kit, but I wanted a fire other than Arvata to pop here because I don't have a Fire King to bring back if I do pop Arvata. So Havness didn't mill too much, really just the Trivikarma here, so they can search off that, that's fine. We'll summon our Ponix here. Adding the Perla Rhino, makes sense. And then Kit F, I'll just send Fractal just to get the last name into the graveyard. Ponix will of course add Sanctuary, and then Sanctuary will place the Fire King Island on the field. Island's gonna pop the Okanix and then add the Sacred Fire King Garunix. Well, this is the line that I was describing earlier, the Okanix line, which we'll cover as well a little bit more in Fire King Snake Eye when I try that next. So yep, there is a new Garunix and old Garunix, and then we're popping the Kirin. Kirin F will bring back the Okanix. So as you can see, this deck can pretty easily set up a good amount of materials here. Here I am going to go into the Sunlight Wolf, even though, again, I don't really think you need this for this Tri-Brigade variant in particular. But, I don't know, it is nice to be able to add the Kirin back to hand. And then we can go for the Promethean Princess, followed by the Ambluale. And then after that, we still have the Karos F. We have not used Karos' effect yet to go for Tri-Brigade plays. And something I do think that is particularly cool is how well the Fire King engine will set up your graveyard to then be able to make Tri-Brigade stuff with like Fractal and whatnot, right? So I'm going to banish 2 for Fractal for Bearbrum, and then another 2 for the Ancient Warriors Oath Double Dragon Lord. That'll actually set up another form of disruption in the form of a bounce on the opponent's turn. Now, normally I don't make Shurg on turn 1, but here I will just to banish the Havness, and then that's also a way to send a Bearbrum to the yard to be able to add the Revolt here. I'll just put back the Arvata. Don't think I'll be needing that at the moment, but yeah, we'll send the Imperm and the Revolt and then pass. So aside from summoning Shurg, this is a pretty typical turn 1 setup here with the Tri-Brigades and the Fire Kings. Again, only summoned a Shurg here to banish the Havness. I do think that I probably should have set up a Link 2 though, like actually Link summoned one, because as I pointed out in the deck profile earlier, I can't actually bring back Bearbrum off of Revolt because it wasn't properly Link summoned. So with this current setup, I'll need to use Ancient Warriors Oath Double Dragon Lords to clear up a space for my board. Then I can Revolt for 4 to Shurg on the opponent's turn. But otherwise, yeah, I think this is a pretty typical setup you'd expect to see all the time on turn 1 for this deck. So they're going to lead Pearl Rhino, add Tier Cash, then summon the Rhino Heart. I'm not going to imperm the Rhino Heart. I'm just going to wait for the Fusion Summon, which I thought was going to be Kickless, but they go straight for Kaleido Heart here. But it makes sense they go straight for Kaleido Heart because I already banished the Havness, right? So that's a fusion they don't have access to. Wow, they conceded. I thought they went on for a little bit longer than that, but So they have Chainlink 1 Kaleidoheart and then Chainlink 2 Pearl Rhino. The Kaleidoheart doesn't target, so they don't have a banish, or they don't have a target there. But the Pearl Rhino does, and they're actually targeting my double Dragon Lord. So what I can do here is I was going to go Chainlink 3 double Dragon Lord, right? Target the Kaleidoheart. And then Chainlink 4 Imperm to negate the Kaleidoheart. And you want to do it in that order because you'll negate the effect and then bounce it. If you bounce it first, or if you negate first and then bounce it, then your Imperm won't resolve. But because Imperm will have resolved and negated the card, I think it works this way, because, like, for example, Rescue Cat, if you Imperm it on the resolution of the summon, and then it tries to activate the effect, it'll still be negated even though it's going to the graveyard. So I believe if you Imperm Chainlink 4 and then Double Dragon Lord's Chainlink 3 here, the way it plays out is that Imperm will negate the Kaleidoheart, Double Dragon Lords will then bounce it, but it'll still be negated because the Imperm successfully resolved. That also does free up 4 slots to summon Revolt, or to summon all of the monsters we need for Revolt into Shurg, which would get us another bounce. And then, of course, we still have the Promethean Princess and Kieran for more interactions from there. But obviously, the opponent conceded well before all of that. So, but I think that's a pretty general idea of how this deck likes to play out its games. So let's take a look at some other duels here for some more examples. Okay, so I think the next game we're going to watch, the last one, will actually be against Snake Eye. I don't recall off the top of my head which one this is, but I guess we're going to find out. We're going second this time. Alright, and we opened Ash plus Imperm. It's against the Lab. Ash plus Imperm, not too much more you can ask from that. They're going to lead with the Ariana. We're going to Imperm that and not Ash it, because we want to save the Ash for the Welcome Trap cards, right? So they're going to set 2, activate the field spell, the Lab, and then pass back over to us. So we've got Ponyx, we have multiple Tri-Brigade stuff. We should be good to go from here. I'm going to lead with Fractal, and they're going to chain the Called By. That's not really that big of a deal, though. Unlike older Tri-Brigade decks, which really relied on the Fractal to set up your graveyard to be able to make plays, again, the Fire King variant has access to so many options as far as loading up your graveyard that you don't have to really worry about that as much. So, go to normal to Ponyx for Sanctuary. They got the Welcome Lab. I'm going to Ash Blossom here, and I hope they don't concede right away, because I'd like to show at least a little more of this duel. But, yeah. Oh, no, they do concede right away. I had a feeling that was the case, but I'll go ahead and describe how the rest of the turn would have played out from here. So, from here, we would have Sanctuaried, obviously placed the Fire King Island. Island can pop the Ponyx and then add new Garunix. New Garunix will summon itself and then send... It could be Kieran or Avarta. No, it would be Kieran here, though, because it can pop the Ariana on the field. So Kieran brings back the Ponyx, pops the Ariana, Karos, pitch Karos, and then from there, it should honestly be very easy to find lethal. Could probably just Karos and then go straight for Shurg, or if not Shurg, you could go for the Rugal, the Link 3, right? You could banish 3 to summon Rugal, and then link the Rugal into the Karos for access code Talker. Because the thing to remember about the Fire King cards, right? Or not the Fire King, geez. The Tri-Brigade cards, rather, is that the restriction on them is that you can only use Tri-types, Beast, Beast Warrior, Wing Beast, as link material for the rest of the turn. Material. However, you can still summon non-Tri-type link monsters like access code. So again, you can Karos, banish 3, summon Rugal, link Rugal and Karos into access code, 5,300, plus the new Garunix, which have gotten buffed from sending Kieran, would definitely be enough to lethal for that turn right there. So, yeah, they concede. I would have liked to have actually shown me doing that, but I can at least describe it to you in this situation. The last game, the one against Fire King Snake Eye, is a little bit more back and forth, so let's finish off with that duel. Okay, as mentioned, yeah, this is going to be that last game here against Fire King Snake Eye. So this one I actually kind of remember how it played out in my head a little bit, but I will not spoil things. Let's see who ends up going first. It's going to be them again, actually. Wow. I don't remember that we had multiple going second games, but I'm not opposed to that. As you can see, it's not that hard to open plays of this deck. I mean, you have a lot of gas and a lot of different ways to go about your plays here, but then you have the Bonfire for the Snake Eye Ash. I'm going to Imperm it, but oh, if it were only that easy. I mean, very occasionally it is. The Imperm on Ash is just enough, but Here they are going to have the 1/4 pitching maxi for Poplar, which is basically going to ensure that they're going to be able to play out the rest of their turn 1 here. But again, our hand is looking really solid. We have, yeah, multiple Fire King stuff to do and multiple Tri-Brigade stuff to do. Okay, so Link Kribo, Poplar into Spell Trap, Original Sin on the Poplar to get the Oak, Oak F, bring back Poplar. And then Oak can summon the Flamberge, it'll send itself and Link Kribo to do that here. Alright. Flamberge and Ash, that makes sense because now you can bring back the Ash and still be able to use the second effect if you need to, which I actually don't really think you do anymore, but they're to have it not need it, right? Oh, they are going for it. No, they're Link something. Okay. I was going to say they are going for it, but this might not even be Fire King. It might just be pure Snake Eye. I don't see pure Snake Eye like hardly ever anymore on ladder. In fact, I think if this is pure Snake Eye, but see, they made Ambler, which kind of makes me think it's Fire King, because pure Snake Eye is typically on Raging Phoenix instead. Oh wait, maybe they do show Fire King stuff here. No, they're diabeling for the trap card, right? Yeah, I remember now. Yeah, I think in my total climb to DL level max, or D level max, whatever you want to call it for these this event, I think I ran into exactly 2 pure Snake Eye, and that's assuming this one is not playing Fire King cards. So we are going to resolve a Maxi, which actually, for them, or against this deck rather, is pretty big to resolve a Maxi on our own turn. Okay, so here they're going for a play that I generally don't agree with, which is to make Appaloosa, like, as soon as possible. It's funny because one of the things that I've seen people complain about Snake Eye is like, oh, they just make Appaloosa and then they have a million negates and it's so hard to play through. I see a lot of people complaining in general about this card. Well, not a lot of people, but sometimes I do. I kind of don't get it. I think this card is fine. I think this card is very easy to play through a lot of the time. Typically, it's not difficult to force, like, 1 negate. Then this is at 1600 attack, and it's very easy to run over. That's actually what's going to, spoiler alert, happen here, is we're going to be able to force the Appaloosa. And if not, for like, being able to just run over it in battle, it's so easy to steal this thing with triple tack. And again, that might just be me overvaluing triple tactics talent. I know I play that card more than people tend to on average, but I mean, if you're struggling with Appaloosa, I cannot recommend another card enough. It's so easy to force their Appo, then you just steal it with triple tack, and then now not only do you have to worry about the remaining monster negates, but you have negates against your opponent's remaining board to then play out the rest of your turn. I've seen calls for this card to get banned. I don't understand it. I think this card is not an issue at all. But it's generic! Yeah, cards being generic doesn't mean they have to get banned. Alright, so Flamberge is going to bring back Ash and Oak. That's totally fine with me. The more they extend onto the board, the more summons, or the more draws that I'm going to get. And the stuff that they're putting up is not particularly threatening, so again, the Appaloosa and the face down card are really the only things I have to be concerned about here. However, I am drawing a lot of redundant cards. Like, I definitely don't need the second Kirin or the second Kairos. I don't need Kit or Fractal here. Well, Kit is actually a pretty good draw, but Fractal I don't need here. So, yeah, I would have liked more diversity in my draws here, but at the same time, I should still be able to muscle through my opponent's board with what I have here. Sure enough, the Fire King Island does end up baiting the Silvera, which is very nice. I was really hoping that was going to be the case, because look at how many resources I have in it. Another kit, too! Like, I don't know, it's pretty easy to say, like, oh, you just resolved Maxi, and that's why you won this game. But again, half of the cards in my hand here, I are extra copies, right? I think literally half. Well, not literally, but if you count the Fractal as an excess card, then yeah, like, again, I don't really need a lot of this stuff right now. So Okanix, they're going to predictably negate, so I'm going to use the Fire King Kirin here and go ahead and summon that. Moving to battle, they're going to go for the Link Kribo, which I anticipated, so I get to just use the Okanix to proc that. I did actually manage to draw the triple tack, but at this point, I'm just going to battle over the Appaloosa anyway, so. And then look at that, as soon as I summon Kairos, they're like, alright, I'm done. Like, it's just, I don't know. Something I've talked about a lot on stream lately, actually, is how addicted I am to not surrendering. I love trying to play through stuff and, you know, find the out. And I think really, if you're going to focus on especially tournament play, or just participate in tournaments, period, that is something that is a good skill to practice. Of course, as I'll always say, you know, if you value time more than practicing at the game, that's completely understandable, to just concede and move on to another duel when it seems like your opponent is at the advantage. But here, like, again, I've seen so many people on, like, the subreddit and on Twitter and other places say, like, oh yeah, if it's Snake Eye and I don't have hand traps, I just concede. There's no point. Cue me gesturing at this duel right here, where we did have a hand trap, but the opponent played through it. And I think a lot of people, as soon as 1-for-1 for Poplar would have happened, they would have just hit the surrender button and be like, all right, I lose. But no, it's like there's so many games like this where you are actually able to play it through. And I think even more than just practicing for tournaments, it can be a moralizing practice to play through Snake Eye, right? Like, if you always concede to Snake Eye whenever they successfully set up, then yeah, of course it's going to be built up as this big bad boogeyman in your head that is completely unoutable, but like, it is outable. You just have to try. So, that'll do it for these games. Thank you so very much for watching. Let us move to our outro. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. That means a lot to me. It's also a great way to support the channel, so thank you very much in that way as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways, like the very special patrons that I am thanking here, you can do so by checking out some of the links in the description. One of those goes to the Patreon, where you can join these fine folk and support the channel that way. I do post daily content over on Patreon, so you do get something for support there. And if you're interested, I also have a coaching tier option as well. Details again will be on Patreon in the link below. Also in the description linked below is my Twitch page where I stream a few times a week. You can go ahead and check that out, follow or subscribe over there if you ever want to catch me live. You'll also find my second YouTube channel if you feel like subscribing over there to watch some of the Twitch VODs as well as some additional non-Yu-Gi-Oh related content that I make over there. Again, any of those links you want to check out is all a great way of supporting. But again, even if you don't do that, just watching was also a fantastic way to support. And once again, I have to thank you so very much. But in any case, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out, and I'm hoping you have a fantastic day.